Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Editor-in-Chief of Total Retail, and I am joined on today's show by Omer Iqbal, who is the Global Head of Digital Strategy and Enterprise Architecture at Shiseido. Omer and I are going to be speaking about Shiseido's use of data and trying to personalize its customer experiences, as well as looking ahead a little bit into what it has planned for this year's holiday shopping season. So thank you for joining me, Omer.
Hi, Joe. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
So to get us started, could you briefly tell our audience a little bit about Shiseido for those that may not be familiar with the company?
Sure. So Shiseido is one of the top 3 beauty and skincare companies in the world. We're operating in over 120 countries with 30 plus brands in the portfolio. Brands, some of the folks may be familiar with, like NARS Cosmetics, obviously Shiseido, Clé de Peau, Laura Mercier, Bare Minerals, Drunk Elephant, Issey Miyake, and a few more. I've been in the company for about 4.5 years. I was part of the Digital Center of Excellence before. Now I'm part of global IT, overseeing digital strategy and enterprise architecture. And one interesting one is Shiseido is going to turn 150 years old in 2022. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice birthday to celebrate coming up. So you mentioned your role. How about in terms of, you mentioned the breadth of Shiseido and being the 3rd largest beauty and skincare company in the world. Tell us a little bit about kind of the different sales channels that the company's products are available in.
Sure. So, Shiseido grew mainly through the retailers. So your Macy's, your Nordstrom, and now, they're expanding to having their own presence online. Some of the brands have their own stores in the US, but predominantly most of the stores have been in APAC region. So it's one of the few global companies that's actually expanding from Asia into the West, so EMEA and the US, North America. So in terms of channels, we have in-store, we're at retailers, we're online, we're on e-retailers. We work with a lot of pure players as well globally. So very, very extensive in terms of our customer reach now.
Yeah. So that leads into the follow-up question in terms of you're kind of interacting and making your products available in these multiple sales channels, working across the globe as well. Customers are interacting across all these channels, which makes data collection a challenge, I would imagine, as well as an opportunity. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Shiseido to manage that customer data across all these different interaction points.
Yeah, sure. So Shiseido, we've been very purposeful about the customer data strategy. Prior to me joining, we were highly dependent on our retailers from a sales perspective. And as you may know, retailers don't always share customer data. So part of our digital transformation program was to make a big shift to direct to consumer. This meant creating more opportunities to connect with our consumers directly. So, more websites, more, storefronts, more experiences that would connect us directly with our customers. But before we could do that, we needed to create a foundation of having this data in one repository. Data was being collected in different countries, in different channels, in silos. So, and that's where we wanted a strong SaaS MDM solution. So we went with Reltio and used their customer 360 to create that baseline for us. Once that was set up, it was fairly straightforward to start ingesting data from all of these different sources, and then starting to give the visibility to our brand teams of what that customer demographic looks like in each region and country. So it's been a very interesting journey in that sense to see, with our brands and identify what that customer looks like for them. Because in many aspects, our brands didn't really know the exact demographic that was buying their product till we had this kind of information in place.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it's a lead into my next question, Omer. In terms of, from a technology perspective in your role, tell us a little bit about how best Shiseido is going about ensuring that these rich customer data profiles that it's creating, they're being updated in real time. Tell us a little bit about the demands that go into that. And you alluded to your relationship with Reltio. Maybe that can factor into it as well.
Yeah, so it's very interesting for us, right? The customer, and I think it's across all industries, the customer journey keeps changing, and that's where we need to make sure that we're investing in the right technology to stay ahead of the customer. They're looking for content everywhere, they're shopping anywhere, so we want to make sure that we have that knowledge about their preferences. So whether it's investing in personalization tools in terms of communication, in terms of showing relevant content, or something very interesting that I've been exploring for the past couple of years is behavioral analytics. So those tools help us figure out, show us heat maps of what people are clicking on, where are they leaving the journey, where are they staying on, and what their preferences are. All of this data that we're collecting will go into something like, a Reltio to help us understand, and segment those customers. So it's really about keeping either ahead of or at least in line with the customer journey changes.
Yeah, and that predictive nature, if you have that data, potentially forecasting what the next step, the next progression in the customer shopping journey might be, obviously enables you to better serve your customers. I'm interested just in a follow-up to that, Omer, in terms of you talk the different channels that customers are engaging with, and obviously that customer purchase journey isn't linear. Tell us a little bit how that can be connected across channels to get a kind of more of that holistic look into your customers' behaviors.
Yeah, I'm a very strong believer of good customer knowledge leads into good customer experience. So for us, it's been, a heavy focus on how do we create experiences where customer will, give us more first-party data. And then we're constantly evolving to look at that data for the next best action, as you mentioned earlier, whether it's during a browsing session or whether it's, an abandoned cart recovery email or SMS that we're sending, So that's really, really important for us. So tools like Reltio, and then on top of that, we'll have an analytics tool, we'll have an insights platform that will drive and provide our business teams with the, what's the next best thing to do for our customers. And it's not just that, we're sort of changing our mindset from, duplicating the experience in store onto other channels. We're now focusing on each channel separately to say, what's the expectation for Joe on mobile versus desktop versus in store versus at a retailer versus at a kiosk at the airport. All of those, we don't want it to look, we want brand equity across these, but the experience, we want to make sure it's relevant for you for that time and for that channel. So that's something that we're really, really focusing on. And that's something that we learned to pivot over the past year. When stores were closed, we had to pivot towards websites. We had to pivot towards apps and other channels of customer engagement.
Yeah, it's a great point in terms of, this was kind of retailers were forced to pivot very quickly as well as stores were closed, and consumers that traditionally may have shopped the brands on in store rather were forced to go online. So that kind of learning their behaviors in this new channel was also something that needed to be taken care of as well. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned the customer experience and how customer data factors into that. So tell us a little bit about how Shiseido is leveraging customer data to improve the customer experience. Maybe have an example or two. And then kind of a follow-up to that is just kind of what are the benefits of doing this effectively?
Sure. So what Shiseido has done is, other than creating, these direct channels with the customer, if I look at our expansion, when I joined, we had about 6 to 7 websites, e-commerce websites across the globe, which was, not optimal. But we were fortunate enough to start expanding that program. We have about 80 plus sites, and that really helped us to pivot to those channels, over the past year and a half. We saw over 40% growth and, across e-commerce, which was not typically expected. So creating some gamification experiences. So we'll have quizzes on the site. We'll have, with customers not being able to go to the store, how do we give them access to some of the beauty associates that they would have normally interacted with, whether it's one-on-one video conferencing, whether it's live streaming shows. We had to move very quickly. And based on some of this consumer data, we were able to say, okay, we see that our customers prefer being part of a live stream rather than having a one-on-one video consultation. Or in certain countries or markets, that one-on-one is more preferred. So how do we make sure we can equip our beauty associates, not just with that data, but with the technology to be able to communicate, whether it's a Zoom, whether it's something else, whether it's a Teams setup to talk to their consumers. But customers are just very, very hungry for content as they're not able to go into a store and explore for themselves. So we very quickly created a live stream program for all of our brands. And we were seeing traffic that we wouldn't expect in a store. So for example, if there's an influencer that's doing a live stream session for 1 hour, we would get 4, 5, 10,000 people, depending on the brand and timing. We would never be able to get that many people within an hour into a store. So those are the kind of things that we had to pivot towards. And we were lucky enough to have a good baseline to be able to do that. And I don't want to make it sound too easy, but having that foundation definitely made things easier for us to do.
Yeah, that's a great example in terms of the live stream that you got up and running on a quick turnaround there, given the circumstances and how you've seen the engagement from that channel. So that's a great way to kind of illustrate the point. I did allude to earlier, Omer, that we were going to talk a little bit about what Shiseido has planned for the upcoming holiday season. But first, I want to kind of take a step back and look at some of the lessons that the company learned from last year's holiday shopping season. Obviously, a different retail landscape in December 2020, at the height, kind of right in the middle of the pandemic. So tell us, some of the lessons that you learned from last year's holiday shopping season, and then secondly, how those lessons might be impacting what you're planning for this year's holiday season.
Sure. You've probably heard this so many times about, shipping and people shopping earlier for the holiday last year. I think that was a big learning experience for us. We had to staff up our customer service team, and we had to very quickly change for them being just a support center into a profit center as well. So customer service, before 2020, we were focusing on in-store clienteling applications. So how do we arm the folks in the stores? We had to change that strategy and use that data and now give it to our customer service reps. So they're playing a double role. Not only are they addressing questions about their order or products, but they're also able to sell. So that was a big learning for us. So we want to be able to be appropriately staffed for this holiday to take those calls, to provide the comfort level to our consumers who are calling in. We also want to make sure that our inventory information is accurate. We're trying to work with our retailers also on that, but most importantly, our web inventory is accurate so that people, when they're ordering, they have full visibility of what they're going to get, when they're going to get, in terms of shipping, availability, so those are major things. One other aspect that we saw that jumped was the work on the orders placed on mobile. In the past, we'd seen a lot of people research on mobile, but they tend to shop on their desktops or going into a store. But we saw the number of sales rise significantly on mobile. So how we're preparing is we're creating not just mobile first, but sometimes mobile only experiences for certain campaigns within our brands to make sure that when they're getting the optimal experience when they come in and shop on their mobile phones, and also all the information that's available in other channels is available to them through the mobile site.
So it sounds like some of these behaviors that obviously were happening before the pandemic, but were certainly accelerated. Some of these digital behaviors that consumers we're seeing from consumers, the growth of mobile, some of the omni-channel features that you talked about in terms of buying and fulfilling across different channels. Those are some trends that really were accelerated over last year. You're kind of going into this holiday season thinking that those trends will stick this year and potentially long term as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the comfort level that people have now that they have access to beauty associates answering their questions, I think that's going to be something that continues Also, the fact that social selling is becoming so big, where influencers or beauty associates have their own channels to communicate with these customers, create their following. We're seeing micro influencers becoming influencers. So there's a level of comfort that customers now have talking directly to a brand, going by word of mouth, doing research on their own, as opposed to walking into a store. That I think it's going to have a long-term impact for sure.
So, Omer, we've talked a little bit about kind of the collection of customer data and how that data can be leveraged. I want to just maybe flip it to talk about the Shiseido customer. Tell us kind of a little bit about the Shiseido customer and the different brand customers, and then what their expectations are. Do they, we hear that consumers' expectations continually are rising for the experiences they want from retailers and brands. Has that been the case? And what are you doing to kind of meet those expectation levels?
Yeah, great point. We've seen that anyways evolving, but like you said, it's really exponentially evolved over the past year or so. So, we have makeup brands, we have skincare brands. With everybody, with the stay-at-home economy booming over the last year, makeup had taken a slight hit, and there was a heavy focus on skincare. So we had to change our strategy as well. Like, how do we push skincare more? How do we create content that is more relevant for people who are at home, trying to take care of their skin? It's more of a lifestyle change rather than anything else. So, our customer demographic, actually, the age of people are starting to take care of their skin much younger. So that's really good news. We have our the 50 to 60-year-olds, we have the 40 to 50-year-olds, both male and female, who are very conscious about having good skin, making them feel good. So we're very focused on providing them not just the content, but also the technology. So we're investing heavily on, virtual try-ons. So without going into a store, you can see how a lipstick shade looks on you. We are also investing in skin diagnosis. We have several programs that are basically taking images of your skin and predicting what it may look like. We're predicting what are the kind of things that you need. Do you need more moisturizer? Do you need, what are the sebum levels, of your skin? So those are the kind of things that we're seeing resonate really well with our customers, regardless of the age group, regardless of where they're at in terms of geographical location. And those are the things that we will continue to invest in and create more programs and campaigns and products around. And one of the things is the feedback that we get from these consumers is not just relevant for our marketing teams, but it's also going into R&D and product development to better serve the needs of these consumers globally.
So then my final question, Omer, is, based upon what we've talked about, can you kind of map out what the metrics are that you will be looking at Shiseido to measure the effectiveness of, we've talked about different ways that you're trying to personalize the customer experience through content, through product, through marketing messaging. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be looking at as in terms of results and how you measure the customer experience, both, for the upcoming holiday season, as we've alluded to, and as well, you're kind of moving into next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sales is obviously the biggest KPI that we look at. But other than that, it's around customer retention. We start looking at how many returning customers, how many new customers. We look at content effectiveness. So the behavioral analytics tool that I talked about earlier, that helps us really gauge how long are folks spending time on a certain page. What are they clicking at? What are they pointing to? We're also looking at data effectiveness. How many people are actually going to be completing their profile over the next 6 months? So, for example, if you have your profile, you've only given me your first name, last name. How can I ensure that you provide me with more information, like your age, perhaps your skin concerns, your skin type, all of these things? Once I have this information, I want to be able to see how our marketing teams are effectively using it, because there's a cost of having this, right? And there's also a risk of having all this information with all the new privacy compliance and laws coming in. So we're constantly looking at what's our data retention policy? And as long as this data is useful, I want to keep it. As soon as we see that there is a drop in usage of this data, we want to purge it. safely and make sure that we're compliant with CCPA, GDPR, and all the new stuff coming out of China as well. So really, the KPIs we look at are customer retention, cost of acquiring a new customer, and how do we encourage customers to provide us more data about them, because first-party data is really going to become key over the next couple of years for most organizations.
Yeah, that's a great point in terms of that last one and trying to get the customers to provide you more data, I guess. And you alluded to the fact that that's contingent upon two things that from the consumer. One, they expect that the retailer is going to protect and keep that data safe. And then two, if you are collecting that data, there's a reason for that. They want to be able to then see that you're using that information to help personalize their experiences and give them what they expect based upon the data that they're providing you.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Great. Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to take the opportunity to thank Omer Iqbal of Shiseido for joining us on today's episode of Total Retail Talks. Thank you, Omer.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure being on this. Great fun. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.